welcome to this video on using the message, flow, and global objects in MUSE Automator. In this video, we will give a practical explanation of each, how they differ, and when to use each type. We will begin with the message object. MSG, or message, is a JavaScript object that travels from node to node in a flow. It is short-lived, moving data. The message object exists only when the message is moving from node to node. Each node gets its own copy, and it is destroyed after the flow finishes. Common usage of the message object would include data being processed right now, values that need a single execution, and passing values between nodes. Next, we will talk about the flow context. The flow context is shared memory for a single flow. Think of it as variables shared by all nodes on a single tab. Flow variables are not visible to other tabs, and they persist across multiple messages. Some common uses of flow context would include flow-specific logic, values that must persist between messages, and states shared within one flow. Lastly, we will talk about global context. Global is application-wide shared memory. They are variables shared by all flows. They are accessible from any flow, any node, and persist across all messages. A couple of common uses of global context would include data used across multiple flows and central configuration. Let's look at some examples. In the first example, we have an inject node that sends message.payload containing hello world, and then a change node that changes the message.payload to 12345. When we trigger the inject node, we can see the current value of message.payload at each step of the flow by using the debug section of the sidebar. Once the message reaches the end of the flow, it is destroyed and can no longer be used. In the next example, we are using the same inject node, but in this case, the change node is setting flow.test1 to the value of 123. When we trigger the inject node on this flow, you will notice that the message.payload of hello world makes it to the end of the flow because it was not modified by the change node. If we change the sidebar over to the context data tab and refresh the flow section, we will now see that we have test1 with a value of 123. This is now stored and can be used again in this flow. The next example is like the previous, but we are using the change node to set global.testing to a value of testing123. When we trigger this flow, we will see our message.payload pass through to the end. And if we refresh the global section of our context sidebar, we see that testing with the value of testing123 has been stored. Now let's select the Flow 2 tab. You will notice that in the context sidebar, our flow section is empty, but our global section is still populated with testing. This is because the flow context only exists in the flow in which it was created, whereas the global context can be accessed from anywhere in the project. We can use the inject node on Flow 2 to set flow.test1 to a value of ABC. If we change back to our Flow 1 tab, you will see that the flow context data changes depending on the flow that is selected, whereas the global context data stays the same regardless of which flow is selected. That's it for this video. For more news and product information, visit us at our website at amx.com. For troubleshooting tips, FAQs, and code examples, visit our Anytime Help Center at help.harmonpro.com.